Good afternoon, y'all. Thanks for that epic music. Good afternoon, y'all. Bonjour, chers amis. Aichen Klak, Aid Natulsh, and from the lands that I call home, Bonjour, Anim. Thanks, Annette, for that kind introduction, and thanks to all of you at MoveUP for the opportunity to join you here this year. Before I get into it, I just want to get a sense of the room here. Apologies, I know some of y'all did this in the morning, but if this is your first time attending a MoveUP convention or your first time attending any labor or political convention, just raise your hand or make some noise if you can. Right on. Welcome. Now, if you have been about that life, if you are a convention veteran and you've got like 3 or more MoveUps or any other labor or political convention under your belt, go ahead, raise your hand, make some noise if you're able. Fantastic. Now, introverts, y'all are gonna have to forgive me for this next bit. People in the first group, if you find yourself with a question, particularly, and I've been to enough conventions that I've heard a lot of these, like, what does that mean? Kind of question. Remember the people in the second group, and please don't be shy about asking one of them. People in the second group, my fellow weirdos who do this all the time, especially those of you that came with a crew of colleagues or a posse of the proletariat, or you just know a lot of folks, I've got some homework for y'all. Please make it a point every day you are here to introduce yourself to somebody new that you don't know. Conventions are a team sport, and team sports are always more fun when you're close to your teammates. And everybody who didn't raise your hand just now, I didn't forget about you. As my granny used to say, if you come by once, you're a guest. If you come by again, you're family. So, your homework is to keep your head on a swivel and be ready to help where you can. Thanks so much, y'all. Now, I know it might be a shock to hear after that wind-up, but I really love conventions. Not just because I love yelling, "Tile the doors!" at the top of my lungs, even when the doors are not being tiled. Not just because I'm a nerd who deeply loves the drama of like a pro-mic, con-mic showdown. And not just because I was stoked to hear your amazing president set the table and tell us the stakes of this election. Not because I'm looking forward to hearing from visionary progressive leaders like your premier, David Eby, about what concrete things government can do to build a better future now and in the years to come. Now, I love conventions because they're a chance to come together, to look each other in the eyes and grab a coffee instead of another freaking Zoom. An opportunity to really drill down and remember who we are as a movement, why we do what we do, and why we are still excited, hopeful, and motivated to fight for a better future. Because, let's be honest, it's hard right now out there, you know? Every morning you pick up your phone and all you see are challenges that seem so insurmountable. Fear, division, and hate are all on the rise all over the world. Disinformation, misinformation, and apathy are spreading. So often, dread feels like the name of the game. Dread about another fight on social media. Dread about interacting with that uncle at a family function. Dread about the price of a liter of freaking milk, or the rent, or the mortgage. Some of y'all might be nursing dread about a potential right-wing government here in BC. Dread about the possibility of a straight-up fascist Trump presidency down south. Dread about peace, safety, and self-determination in Palestine, and in Israel, in Syria, in Myanmar, in Ukraine, and in Sudan, just to name a few that are on my heart right now. Dread about the wildfires, and the flooding, and the hurricanes. Dread about the climate crisis, and the future of our planet. Friends, to be paying attention in this world means that dread can be pretty tough to escape. I lost my uncle, Winston, about a month ago. And as many of you will know, we at the Broadbent Institute, where I'm vice chair of the board, we lost our founder, our mentor, and our national hero, Ed Broadbent, early this year. So I've been thinking a lot about loss and leadership and legacy and the terror that comes with looking around for someone wise to tell you what to do, only to realize that it's now in your hands. When I get like this, all in a funk that even a bottle of wine and a Beyonce album cannot fix, I think about what my elders often said when they were alive. What my mom still says all the time. Jared, you sad? Well, if you have time to be sad or mad, if you have time to be afraid, if you have time to worry, then you have time to work. And yes, I have spent many years and a lot of therapy sanding the rough edges off of that message. But at its core, it's true. Action is the cure for dread and the enemy of despair. This is a core principle of our movement, of the bumpy road to democracy, of so many of the paths that brought us here. The work that you all do, the work of organizing and advocating, of conversations with folks at the door, union stewards around the table, and delegates at this convention, doing this work is like harnessing the power of time travel. Stay with me for a second here. When we act, we become the focal point of a story that started long before we were born and will continue long after we're gone. We are able to build a better future, not just because of how smart our policies are or how pure our ideology is, but because we tap into the power of everyone that has done this before. We can come together and build a better future because they already did, and we're living in it. Friends, I know this is true, not because I heard it in a speech on Parliament Hill or read it in a policy paper. I know it's true because it's the story of my family, and it is the story of my life. And I would wager, in one way or another, it's the story of all of yours. In 1944, the year this union was founded here in BC, I just learned this year, today. I was today years old when I learned that. Both my grandmother and my grandfather won the right to vote in the only home they'd ever known. Even so, when my mom was born, 10 years later or so, the seal at the top of her birth certificate said, "The Crown Colony of Jamaica." Years later, growing up in a newly independent Jamaica, she walked several kilometers to school after she went to fetch water from the well at the crack of dawn. Ever the trailblazer, my mom became the first person in her family to finish high school and then college. She became a teacher because she saw teachers making a difference in lives like hers. And after years of teaching in the Caribbean, she seized the opportunity to bring her bouncing boy here to Canada. But friends, let me tell you, this is not where the story ends with happily ever after. When we got here, it wasn't easy. For one thing, the Canada my mom and I immigrated to did not recognize foreign-trained and accredited professionals from certain countries. So even when we got here, my mom couldn't work as a teacher, even though she'd already been an incredible educator for well over a decade. In fact, she spent years working side jobs in order to go back to teachers' college and get accredited all over again just to get back into the classroom. Also, like a lot of people who immigrate to Canada, we started our journey staying with family. Unfortunately, some of the family we stayed with didn't treat us like family. One of those family members in particular was pretty mean and pretty angry. They drank too much, and one night they put their hands on me, and so my mom had to make the really difficult decision to pack us up and venture out into the city of Toronto on our own with what we could fit in a pair of duffel bags. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Those were tough times. If not for my mom's tremendous courage and her resourcefulness and the sheer force of will, we wouldn't have made it. If not for amazing people just like MoveUP members who work here at women's crisis centers, we wouldn't have made it. If not for folks like the MoveUP members who work at credit unions, we would not have gotten the financial lifelines that we needed to survive. And if not for the people like the MoveUP members that are transit workers, we certainly would not have gotten to work or school for the decade we simply could not afford a car. Like so many other Canadians who found themselves in similar situations, we made it through. In large part because of organizations and programs and services and working people that were there when we needed them. Folks like many of you in this room. That's why we in the labor movement are always saying that good union jobs don't just improve the lives of people who have them. They drive up wages for non-union and unionized workers alike. They improve working conditions and quality for all workers. And their stability and security makes it possible for good people to pay it forward every day, in big ways and in small ways. And guess what? With help and support, our present got a little brighter day by day, and we were able to build a better future for our family. My mom finally got a good union job of her own here in Canada, working hard, working night school, working summer school. She became a high school teacher again. And man, did she ever pay it forward. When she had the opportunity to become permanent, she chose to teach and stay at an inner city school like the ones I attended when we first immigrated. She founded and ran the school breakfast and lunch program. She ran the BIPOC Achievers Club. She fundraised to take her civics classes on trips to City Hall, to the provincial legislature, Queen's Park, to Ottawa to see Parliament Hill, to Charlottetown to see where Canadian Confederation began, and to powwows and Indigenous arts and culture festivals to learn about the history of these lands before Canada was a twinkle in some old white dude's eye. Because of the foundation laid by that good union job, because of the support my family got when the chips were down from people like all of you and the 14,000 MoveUP members, because of the dedication and the hard work of my mom and the village it took to raise me, I was able to chart my own course, starting with a chance to catch lightning in a bottle and work for another son of an immigrant man with an unlikely story. A guy from Chicago with big ears and a funny name. A guy who taught a generation about the power of a little thing called hope. All right, that's all I got on the Obama. But I was so proud to serve as a New York State coordinator of Students for Obama, the student wing of the Obama campaign in 2008. It's how I got my start in this progressive movement of ours. I loved every minute of it, and I've never looked back. Fast forward some, I got to come back home, help make a little bit more history here, including as communications director for Jagmeet Singh's barrier-breaking NDP leadership campaign in 2017. Speaking of my old boss, I heard you'll be seeing him tomorrow. If any of y'all happens to run into him at any point, please tell him that my little cousin and her parents asked me to say, thanks for the Canadian Dental Care Plan, and especially thanks for the braces. Friends, I'm not sharing my story with y'all today because it's particularly remarkable. I share it because I know everyone here has some version of that story in your own life. A story where, against all odds, people came together to build a better future that you or someone you love is living in. When I think of my family's journey in the span of just 3 generations, from living deep in the rural interior of a tiny island a few kilometers from the nearest dirt road, nearly cut off from the wider world, without running water, without electricity, without the right to vote, to me having the opportunity to speak to you here today, I know that together we can build a better future. And because I know that Canada has meant very different things for different people, let me tell you about a friend of mine and her family's journey over the exact same amount of time. You see, my friend is a proud Mohawk woman, and her father is a survivor of the 60s scoop. When her dad was taken away from her home as a child, they told my friend's grandma that her baby boy would be, and I quote, the end of the Mohawk line. He grew up thinking he was Irish, and that lady down the street, his mother was a distant cousin. Well, 2 generations later, that grandma, that dad, my friend, and her kids were all playing in grandma's backyard this summer. The Mohawk line is not ended. It is strong. And when I see them, I know that together we can build a better future. A better future no matter what you look like or who you love or your gender or the language your parents and your grandparents speak. Which brings us back around to where we started, to the magic of conventions like this one, if you lean in, enjoy the ride, and embrace some of the cringe. When things are looking rough, when the dread creeps in, we can tap the connections we make this week to fuel us and harness the things that we learned to propel us forward. Because if you've got time to talk to your friend about Donald Trump and who's eating whose pets, then you've got time to make sure that you, that friend, and a couple more friends have a plan to vote right here at home. Yes. So that Looney Tunes and climate change deniers and corporate crooks and bigots don't get to write our laws. And if you've got time to sit at home worried about a rough poll or a gnarly article that you saw online, you've got time to go to bcndp.ca/volunteer and sign up to help. All right, straight goods here. Look, I know that many of you here are probably not New Democrats. I know some of y'all may not even be planning on voting. And I know all of us know folks who aren't planning on voting in our own lives. Now, I'm going to say something a little controversial here and say that if you're skeptical, that's okay. The times we're living in, they're alienating. They're often very disappointing. And skepticism is a reasonable response to all of that. So I'm not asking people to give up their skepticism. I'm not asking you even to park it. If it suits you, bring it with you. Just don't let skepticism back you into a corner. Don't let it take away your power. Don't let it stop you from moving toward the future that you actually want. Our friend Jack Layton was famous for saying, "Don't let him tell you it can't be done." Well, if I can add to that, I would say, don't let them tell you your voice doesn't matter. Don't let them tell you your work doesn't matter. And don't let them tell you that your story doesn't matter. Our stories are who we are. They root us, they drive us, they connect us to each other, and when we share them, when we use the power of our stories to bring people together and to fuel action, they're some of the most powerful tools we have to build a better future for all of us. So let's keep it moving. Let's come together for the rest of this week to share our stories of the hard-fought victories we've won and the places where folks could still use a little help. Let's dig into the progressive policies and the initiatives that will help people get the help that they need and that they deserve. Like tough, innovative new laws that tackle the housing crisis by protecting renters, regulating short-term rentals to turn them into desperately needed homes, and updating zoning to allow for more multifamily homes. Or fixing the damage of privatization by bringing back thousands of healthcare workers back into the public system, into good union jobs, instead of the unstable, low-paid, disrespected jobs that too many healthcare workers were forced to leave behind. Like hiring more doctors and hiring more nurses to help bring down those abysmal wait times, and like building and expanding schools for our kids so every student has a safe and supportive and well-resourced place to learn, with more caring and qualified adults in each classroom. Let's organize and mobilize and vote to re-elect an NDP government that will put those policies into action here in BC. Yay, indeed. And let's connect to do the vital work of strengthening our workplaces, of recruiting more union stewards, of strengthening MoveUP and the broader labor movement so that in generations to come, millions more Canadians can tell their own stories of how we came together when things were hard, of how we shook off the dread and we shed the despair and we built a better future for all of us. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Haisupka, oil mullah, miigwech. Thanks, y'all.